Yeah, no problem, man. No problem.
Mr. SupaDrift Champion for 2019?
2019, yeah. It feels like such a long time ago as well.
It does, hey? Especially at the moment, hey? Yeah, this year's just been an absolute mess. And your side, what have you been busy with? How have you been occupying yourself? Obviously, you've got a sim, so you were fine during lockdown. You kept yourself entertained.
Pretty much. We've been doing a lot of sim stuff. It's been very tricky because obviously we can't really go anywhere. So you sort of limited to what you can do in your area. So a lot of the tracks were closed. I think Killarney's only opening up recently now as well. So I've just been pretty much doing a lot of sim driving, getting my eye installed. It seems to have, I don't know, I don't know if it's paid off yet, but we'll know when we get there. But I think it still keeps you in the loop of things. So you still stay on top of your game, even though you're not really going anywhere, actually doing physical driving. It'll never replace the actual real feeling of it. But yeah, it's been all right. It's been a bit quiet, missed the driving though. So, but hopefully that can happen soon, So yeah.
The whole camaraderie and everything that goes around it, as part of racing. I mean, it's normally such a family affair.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part that everyone's missing at the moment. There's no one yelling at you, and, cheering you on, and
Yeah, spectators on the line, and it's even when it does get up and running between racing and drifting, generally it's going to be quite unique because you're limited with the amount of people that you can actually take to a track as part of your pit crew. And never mind that from the spectators at home, they can't necessarily be there to watch you. There might be a live stream of some sort, but it's not the same thing. They're not physically there to see you and cheer you on and smell the burning rubber and the basic stuff. So yeah.
I mean, that's racing, dude. I mean, the drifting. I mean, I've had Mike and a few US guys and stuff on the show. I mean, that smell of tires and the methanol and everything that comes together and the crowd screaming. I mean, that's an experience every time. And
yeah,
doesn't matter. I mean, I'm all for live streaming because it gets viewership and stuff there, but it takes away that one-on-one. I think something gets missing.
Yeah, it's like
contact. Smell-o-vision.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the contact you get with the crowd, especially with drifting, we don't sort of put those barriers between people coming to the pits and stuff. A lot of other motorsport categories, people feel like they can't really walk to you and say hello. With drifting, we sort of, at least me, I'm probably not the only one, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the people asking weird questions and just like the interaction and saying, oh, what is this? Or can I have a seat in the car? A lot of other places won't do that. For me, it's, I love that interaction. I think the more I can share my knowledge onto anybody else, I think it might help them in the future, so I'm all for that, It's just a pity it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So, yeah.
Look, you're so right. With a lot of, especially with circuit racing, They kind of keep the race drivers one side and they keep the fans on the other side. You get to see the guy on the track, but we're forgetting that the sport and everything's based on heroes.
Pretty much.
That's it. I mean, you see your driver when you're a kid. You want to be like him. You want to do like what he does. You aspire to that. And without that face-to-face interaction, that's what I love about the American guys and how they do their sport. It's like right there. You sign autographs, get there, get involved, buy T-shirts, do everything it involves. You feel like you're part of the team in a way. If I want to put it that way.
And then it sort of builds up like your follower base and stuff. But I think to most of those guys, it's probably not even about that. It's more about the interaction, getting those people on board. And if they support you, then, so be it. But that's at least how I see things, I guess. But yeah.
No, that makes sense. It makes sense. But I mean, you've had a very interesting career. I mean, look, I did a fair amount of Facebook stalking, before we started talking. And I went back. I mean, you started with circuit racing and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, actually.
How did it all come to be?
At a very young age. Yeah, so basically started when I was a kid. We were still living in Joburg, and I started when I was 4, just did a bit of karting, nothing major, did that for, I think, maybe half a year. But I mean, I was 4. I can only remember like one thing about it. And then we moved to Cape Town in 2003. And at that time, we went through quite a bit of heavy stuff with my mom and all that. But about 2015, sort of like, I mean, my dad's always been in racing. So my dad has been like the guy I've always looked up to. I basically grew up in racing. He was racing Group N back in the day, and he never really stopped until we moved to Cape Town. And when we moved to Cape Town, he started GTR Challenge to the side because we basically did a fresh start of everything. And obviously, being grown up in that whole scene, I also thought, maybe I should also give it a go. Did a bit of karting, like indoor karting at that time. And then my dad's like, okay, well, let's go have a look at a few races. And we looked at stock car racing. And then I started with minis. And basically from the mini class on stock cars, I did that for around about a year. And then from there, we moved over to main circuit when I was 16 years old. And went straight into clubmans. So, I mean, that was a big jump on its own. But that's sort of like where everything sort of started, and that was, call it 2006. So I started racing then. I was basically 16 years old. So, yeah. I was actually 15 when I started, but 16 years old when I did main circuit, So it's pretty interesting.
And the drifting bug, when did that bite? I mean, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I did. I still enjoy main circuit. I still enjoy the racing side of it, but I've been done that for so many years thereafter. 2010 sort of like came around, and I was sort of like two-minded about racing. A part of me enjoys it, but it just felt like the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's like, it's just, we also went through like a rough patch at that time, like 2009, with a lot of motor blowing and stuff, where my dad was trying new things, and it was just like, it wasn't enjoyable. I wasn't enjoying racing. Although I enjoy racing, I wasn't actually physically enjoying it. In 2010, I sort of got into sort of like online, sort of gaming and stuff like that, and also RC drifting. That was like one of the biggest things that actually started for me, was RC drifting. And from there, I did RC drifting for about 2 years while still doing main circuit. But sort of like 2011, I sort of like decided, listen, I want to change now. I want to do something different. And obviously, the drifting bug sort of bit me about a year ago, obviously prior to that. And I just said to my dad, I've got this crazy idea. I was working for a motorsport company. We got an E36 basically as a rolling chassis that had a roll cage. I said to him, I want to build a drift car. And he thought I was absolutely crazy and it's never going to work. And, like I'm wasting my time pretty much. And I sort of like, he was obviously really like annoyed with it, because for him, he was always racing and that was his thing. And I really liked racing, but it was never really felt like it was my thing. It was not something like I decided in a certain degree, like this is the way I want to go. And for the first time, I actually thought like drifting is something I want to do. This is me, It's my sort of mark on the world. So we built the E36. It took us quite a fair while, because we've got racing like knowledge, but drifting knowledge and racing knowledge is two different things as well. The way you set up vehicles, the things you fabricate, you may be looking at different things, and you look at the safety aspect regardless anyway, but it's more like you're not looking at steering angles as closely, or you're looking at like a multi-link suspension, but you're not thinking about it in a drifting manner. You're thinking about it in a racing manner. So it's like different things. Suspension is harder, so you're not really building it technically the correct way. I built that for quite a long time. I think we finished that, if I can remember correctly. My time frame might be a little bit out, but it's about 2015 or 2014 we finished it, somewhere there. And we pretty much, the first drift I did technically in a car. I mean, I've obviously did front-wheel drive stuff, but I was never really a rear-wheel drive person. And the first drift I did was in a competition. I didn't do any practices prior to that. I just pretty much put I took the bull by the horns and I went straight for a competition. Obviously, but that was quite interesting, and I think ever since then it's sort of like, I don't know, it sort of like made sense, like this is really what I want to do. And then my dad obviously backed me from there, so it was quite nice. And we built a strong relationship around drifting as well, which is quite cool. So yeah.
So you drove the BM. How long did you guys you drove the BM for?
I would say, I mean, it took us a long time to build that BM. It took us probably a year to build the BM, and we drove it for about a year and a half. But the BMW had a lot of limitations. It wasn't a bad car. It just needed a lot of development to get to where it was. And at that time, I was like contemplating, I wanted to take it a little bit to the next step, but not like, I didn't want to overdo it, but we were also thinking about doing a team between Daniel Blazer and myself, where we had CVP on board as well. And we decided, let's maybe like join forces. We do a proper team, but a proper team in my mind, since even main circuit days, you need two cars to look the same. So
yeah,
I said to them, I really wouldn't mind an S13 because the S13 is a better chassis from a chassis perspective. And the BM chassis was getting a bit weak. I could see like weak points on the chassis. And for me to do it properly, I'll have to strip the whole chassis down and pretty much fabricate things from scratch. And I wasn't really keen on spending that much money on the same chassis and having a very limited sort of guideline for the way forward on a chassis perspective. So I just sort of like, again, the same like I did with the BM, I sort of dove headfirst into a S13, found another rolling chassis in Port Elizabeth. My wife and I still drove on a weekend. We left the Friday, we picked up the car on the Saturday and drove back the Sunday with the S13. And then we, Daniel Blazer and myself, pretty much built that S13 together in 1 month, which was pretty unique. We used the same running drivetrain, the 1JZ, which we had in the BM, still with the 21R box, kept it standard S13 rear diff, and we pretty much built that in 1 month. And then again, the first time I competed in that car was in actually one of my first SupaDrift national events, which was quite interesting.
Wow, you like just diving in there, eh?
Yeah, for me it's just like, just go head first. I'm not the one to sort of like, I don't know, I think maybe it's just the racing side of it. I never really back down from it. You just rather go, almost want to say balls to the wall and just see what happens, So yeah, that's
it can go one of two ways. You can be great or you can fail spectacularly. I mean, exactly. Either way, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that was quite an interesting time. I mean, part of me still misses the BM slightly. That was quite a cool. It was quite a cool car. It was unique in certain ways. It was a two-door, which was actually technically an M3, what it was in the previous time. So it was, taking an M3 and making it drift. It was quite a cool thing at the time. But I never doubt my changes in everything. For me, that was, I think, a great improvement for me. I think the S13 really sort of showed my driving style. That was like the first proper step I took to saying like, look, this is me. So it was quite cool.
And then from there, you started driving with in the Supra with Mike's place and that stuff. Am I right?
No, well, so we drove with the S13 for, again, I think it was almost 2 years. We changed, I think I did my first national round as well. We started with CVP, and then I sort of decided, there was a point, nothing against him directly, but there was a point where I needed for me to get further, I had to basically split with them if it made sense. I don't know, hard feelings, everyone was on the same page. And as I split from them, I had a good sponsor at the time as well, GNA Motorsport. They basically said, listen, we'll sponsor you tires for pretty much, we obviously had a proper regional SupaDrift series going. So they sponsored me tires for all 6 rounds. We worked on like, I think almost 100 tires, which they were willing to give me. So that was like a good sponsor to have at the time. And we only ran 205 4017s on a S13, and we were very competitive and ended up winning the regional round, the regional championship that year, which was quite nice. And then we obviously competed in Gymkhana Grid in the S13 as well. That's when we transitioned over to the new livery. And then we started, I really decided, I've got to think of my bearings now, in 2018, that I wanted to do some national rounds. So we still did some national rounds in the S13. And then my mind sort of like got to a point where it's like, everyone had an S13. So, there's a lot of S13s out there. It's a very good chassis, don't get me wrong. You can do facelifts. I was thinking of doing like an S15 front. I know Jean's done that. But I really wanted to do something different. Like, I've been drifting all this time. A BM is sort of normal, S13 is sort of normal. And there was actually quite a funny story. There was a kid at Desi. We were at round 3 at Desi in 2018. And I pitted with Jason Webb, and he obviously had the Mustang going for about, I think, just over or just on a year by that time. And he asked if he could put next to me and borrow some gazebos, because we always come, fully kitted out with gazebos and everything. So I said, sure, no problem. And obviously people were all going next to his car, and, mine is just another S13. No one really bothered about this S13. So there was a kid that came through, nothing against what the kid said, but he said to his dad, hey, Dad, look, another S13. And it just made me think again, like, I don't want to be another one, I don't want to just blend in with it. I want to be like a Jason Webb and stand out and be different, And literally, I got back home after that round, and I was thinking what can be different. And I was obviously following the FD scene quite a lot. I'm more I like the more Japanese spec, but FD is quite nice from a performance side and fabrication side, and I do watch a lot of the stuff that they do. And at that time, I was watching a lot of what Steph Papadakis did with Frederick Osbo and the Oris. So my boss at the time, he said to me that he's got these Orises, they come with a full chromoly roll cage. It's basically X-Rally shells. And would I be interested in maybe making something like that work? So I thought, well, this is the perfect timing, why not? Okay. So I ended up selling the S13. And at the same time, I brought up this crazy idea to Mike's Place as well, because from that time they were sponsoring me for a year already, and they were really loving what I was doing. It's not something that was just handed to me. I worked hard for that sponsorship, and they loved the idea. They thought it was fantastic. So they basically gave me full back in on it. We were originally going to go for a Ford butter motor in the Oris, and they said no, let's rather go for this V8 Mustang, and we had this crazy idea of making this work. And at that time, when I sold the S13, I said, listen, obviously I still want to compete in nationals. And they're like, you know what, here's a Supra. You develop it, you do whatever you need to do, you make it work, and you use that in the meantime. And that's how the Supra came about. So we did a lot of development of the Supra. While in the background, we were busy building the Oris. So that's technically where it all started. And obviously the Oris took a long time. It took 7 months to build. It took a bit longer than obviously what expected, but everything's custom. So we basically ended up driving the Supra and still developing the Supra and still doing well in the Supra regardless, even though we're still busy building this Oris behind the scenes, So that was quite a unique situation, and a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into that Oris. So that's something I feel very proud of, because that's something my dad and I really worked hard towards. We tried to work it out from our perspective. It took us 7 months, but it took us over 700 physical hours building on that car. And I mean, there was even one point where we had to finish the bodywork. I just wanted this whole facelift idea, that it must look a bit more modern, but it didn't work on that chassis, because the chassis was a previous spec chassis, and we had 4 days to build it. There was a long weekend, and we literally worked 8-hour days for 4 days straight at Killarney, fabricating, grinding, and we pushed to have it done just so we can get the chassis ready, because it had to go to Speedy Web to do some of the other fabrication parts. So it was this non-stop hurdle that we kept tackling, and then at the end, when we started the car and it was done, basically that was the most rewarding part. Having built that with my dad is pretty much one of the most awesome feeling. I'll never be able to get that back again. That's something I can't explain. It's not when people say you're building a car, how does it feel? To me, it's it's a lot of headaches, and I wouldn't do it again. But if I could do it again with my dad, I would do it every single time. For me, that bond that we shared building that car was more than anything, and then on top of it, we were still doing SupaDrift. So we're coming back from an event. The next Monday, we're back working at Killarney, working on the car, the Oris, trying to get that done, So it was continuously non-stop, busyness, the emotional roller coasters. And literally, obviously, we end up winning the championship after all that crazy year we had as well. So.
But that must be a nice cherry on the cake. I mean, you pushing so hard, you're going and you take the championships.
Yeah, but it was such a difficult year as well from a SupaDrift perspective, because we had round 1, which we had in Johannesburg. We ended up qualifying second, and I basically made a small mistake on my part, and I got knocked out in the top 8. It's not a bad thing to reach the top 8, but I mean, if you're looking at a championship perspective, it's not really where you want to be. You want to be in the top 4 every single part of the year to win the championship. And obviously, we had Jason Webb there as well, so he's got that same mindset. And then we literally had roller coaster after roller coaster, because on that same weekend of round 1 was the qualifiers for Gymkhana Grid to go to Poland. So we literally did like back-to-back driving, and I literally broke a side shaft on my last qualification run for Gymkhana Grid. So I couldn't make that. So we had to fix the side shaft on the last minute. Then round 2 came in Desi. We were top qualifier, so that was great. But then in my buy run of all things, in the top 16, we broke the other side shaft on one of the bumps that came down the hill. And that was still one of the most memorable. Like if I ever think of 2019, I think about the round 2 Desi, because the storm came in. It was raining like you cannot believe. My dad was laying under the car trying to fix its side shaft, like literally held on with 3 bolts just so we can get out to battles and kneel in the top 8. You know, it was like one of those scenarios. And then we still put a fairly good run, but I had no practice in the wet, and we ended up straightening. He also straightened, but I made one too many mistakes, and he took the one on that round. So it was like such a I don't know, it's like such a high to such a low, but like if you look back at it now, it's like a part I always remember about 2019. Yeah. It's like a highlight in my mind, you know. So, and then we obviously went to Mozambique for the first time. We ended up winning, which I thought was pretty. We also qualified first, and we ended up taking the event as well. So we clawed a lot of points back. Then what did we have after that? I think we had. Oh, we also had the Toyota launch, which was quite nice. So I did a lot of driving with the Supra, with the new Supra launch. We also went back to Desi again, and we ended up coming 3rd, which was also quite a good day. And then obviously at the final round, which was double points, we had an outside chance, but like a very slim margin. I had to qualify first and win the event to basically have any chance of actually winning the championship. So Neil qualified 7th, which put us mathematically, it basically worked out perfectly in our favor. But if he finished in the top 4, so if he came 3rd, he would win the championship. If he came 4th, we would win by 3 points. So I went into the semis. I didn't face him. I went into the semis, and he didn't make it into the semis. But I had to win the event still to be able to win the championship. If I didn't win the event, I wouldn't win the championship. If I came 2nd, I would lose it by 3 points. If I won it, I would win it by 3 points. So we pushed so hard, and it's like it never really like hit me that we actually had a chance until we got into the final. I literally like broke out in tears and everything. My dad was like emotional. We were like, this could really be on, you know, but I didn't want to like count my chickens before it hatched. And then when we won it in the final, it was like, such a perfect year. You know, like what a way to end off like a difficult season. All these like little hurdles we faced behind the scenes, and then to back it off with another one and win the championship by that small margin. I would never have guessed it, and it's probably the best way to win. I don't want to win by 100 points. You know, that I wouldn't want to do that. So yeah, that was quite a nice achievement. I mean, that's something I feel very proud of. And if I ever look back at drifting, or even in the future, if I ever have to look back at my drifting career, the highlight for me is 2019, without a doubt. So yeah,
that's brilliant, dude. Now, getting to this Horus of you, that thing is insane. That thing is, I mean, the engineering and stuff, that thing boggled my mind when I started seeing photos of that thing coming out. I mean, behind the scene photos came out and stuff, and I'm like, you put what into what? It completely blew my mind. Just how you guys. I mean, how did that motor just fit in there in the first place? I mean, I'm like, is he sitting on the back seat? What's that?
Well, I am sitting quite far back, but that's from a very like how do you call it? I like to be sometimes maybe too technical. I like to get that weight distribution a bit further back than what I would have liked to in any other car. But the motor actually fits quite nicely in, because if you can think about like a front-wheel drive vehicle, you've got a lot of space width-wise. So V8 is obviously, it's not very long. It's technically a 4-cylinder in length-wise, but it's very wide. So that actually fits perfectly fine. In saying that obviously it's a very tight fit, but it fits fine with what it's got. Our biggest problem is really the exhaust system, I would say, because we were so worried about where we're going to go with this. You know, like if you think about how tight the engine bay is now when you've got this big V8 in there, you don't really have a lot of space by your steering column. We had space on the passenger side, But on the driver's side, there isn't much space because the way the obviously you've got to use the standard subframe, but you can modify on the subframe. But with that and the steering rack position where it was, it didn't really work for us to go down and underneath, by the tunnel side. There was no space.
Yeah.
So my initial thought was, listen, I want to come out the bonnet. Let's do like a Dio Chiaro with these 86 and have these two exhausts popping out either side of the bonnet. And when it came to that, when we took it to Profit, they said it's a little bit tricky because you still limited the space because of the way the V8 sits. Because that means you've got to go like over and then above. So it's not really
you
gonna.
You still have to get past the heads on the side, to get. Yeah.
I mean, even simple things like taking the coils out would have been a problem, because it's like you're very limited in space. So we decided, why don't we just go out the sides? Because we're pretty much obviously very limited on where you can cut and all that, but with the way the rules work, anything above the forwardmost mounting point on the chassis you can cut off, and obviously that includes the sides by the shock towers. So we pretty much cut that whole part, made custom fabrication there for the fenders and everything to fit. So there was a clear access point that didn't hit any wheel arches or actually hitting the tire by any means. So we thought, well, let's just go out the side. That looks pretty cool. And when we started the vehicle up, it's crazy loud. I mean, for normal kilometer conditions, it's obviously. I mean, we did a drive-by. After we put muffles on it, we had to put these like little muffle extenders on the end, and it still made 132 decibels in drive-by, and that's on a drive-by. I mean, Killarney static, like if they measure by the vehicle, it must be max 1. Well, I think they're down now 95 decibels. I mean, that's on a race car. I mean, we 135.
You weren't even winding that yet.
Yeah, exactly. So. But yeah, I mean, that car is very unique. I mean, we run the Winters quick change diff. I really wanted something like my whole mindset is if we're going to build this thing, I want to build it properly. I don't want to we were going to put a 350Z diff in with the CDO9 350Z 6-speed gearbox. That was the original idea. But when this whole thing came about, the guys in Mike's place had a engine that they bought from overseas, but it was a Ford Mustang. It was actually in a car, so it already had a Whipple supercharger on. And it came.
Cool. That was my next question. What are you running, Whipple, or what are you running, Roush?
Yeah, it's a Whipple supercharger. It's actually still on a stage 2. We actually made a stage 3 pulley as well. When we originally got it, the power figures that they said was about 950 horsepower on the stage 2 Whipple. We made a stage 3, not that we would really ever use it, but I've got that option if we need to.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't feel it's needed for what we're doing in South Africa. It's really, it's you don't need to do that. But yeah, the biggest thing for me was like what I learned a lot, obviously, from the Supra, and I learned a lot from the SX. But the biggest thing for me was every time we go to a different track, I had to change my driving style to accommodate the ratios of the vehicle. So if we had to run a certain gear, or we didn't want to downshift on a certain spot, whatever it might be, I had to sacrifice either angle or speed or line to compensate for that sacrifice. But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to build the car around my driving style. So I thought the only way to really do that is to get a quick change diff. And then we managed to get one from Bobby in Kimberley, and yeah, it's been probably one of the nicest things to have, because you can literally takes you less than 5 minutes. You can change your ratio. And you even have your ratios already there. I mean, you just got like these 6 bolts on the back of a cover, pull the cover off, and you can literally flip those gears around, which changes the ratio. Or if you have another ratio set, you can pop those gears in, and then you can put the cover back on and go. So, and it's not like oil leaks out, and I mean, you'll get like a little bit, but it's really not that bad. So, yeah, so that was the whole idea with that Winters quick change. But obviously, you can imagine every little thing now we're adding on, and everything is custom. There's nothing that is like off the shelf. I mean, even on the Supra's got all wise fab front and rear. It's got obviously proper BC coilovers and all the stuff, but it's still a bolt-on item. You can buy it off the shelf and bolt it in, and there you go. With this stuff, every single nut and bolt or spacer or whatever it's going to be is machined for a specific reason. It's a one-off. It's not like another one laying in the pit or something.
That makes it harder later on. I mean, that means if you're at a track, you need to make sure you have another one. Because it's not like you can run and go grab one.
Yeah, so the whole idea is that what we were planning on doing, like if it's on like rear arms or front arms or whatever, we first wanted to develop those components to see what maybe fails or what doesn't fail. I mean, it's kind of we just wanted to tackle this situation a little bit differently. So if we do have an issue, we know what needs to break, we can develop on it, and then we can make a spare one at a later stage. So that we know, like, listen, if something's going to break, we've got another one at the track. Like that was the whole idea. But with this whole COVID thing that kicked in, we haven't really been able to get to that phase yet, and not knowing when we're going to be drifting. Obviously, we've got some days lined up now, but not knowing when we're going to be drifting, really, like, it sort of puts a hold on everything, so it just delays everything from them.
I mean, that must be crazy frustrating when you guys now got this car done, it's ready, you've launched it, you are ready to rock and roll, and then COVID. Now it's just sitting, you can't do anything.
We were actually even planning on, I think it was the last the last Mozambique round. So that day we won the championship. We were actually supposed to have a double header on that day. I planned it so properly. I mean, we bought plane tickets, we arranged accommodation, we arranged everything the way we were going to do everything. We were going to fly from Mozambique. Sorry, not from Mozambique, I'm lying. We were going to do the event from Mozambique. We drive through the night to Joburg, the Johannesburg International Airport. 6 a.m. flight, the first flight out. We fly to Cape Town, arrive at 8 o'clock, and we were going to do Drift City, which started at 10. That was the plan. We obviously planned everything, but then Drift City didn't happen. So and the whole idea is that the first proper competition we did was going to be in Aarhus, at Drift City. I think it would have been phenomenal. So we were obviously planning weeks in advance for 2 vehicles to run, and it never happened, But it probably would have worked out, but it's maybe, it's a blessing in disguise. We had no practice or no development in the car. We don't want to look like a bunch of fools and rock up and something breaks, So, and we had a few teething problems of certain things. We've sort of done a few practice sessions in the Aurus, and there's 1 or 2 things we want to change. It's nothing major, but it's small little things that will need to happen to get the car a little bit more competitive in certain ways. But also the rules changed slightly with the tires as well. So, we can't run. We were running Achilles 123, which is basically like half a semi-slick. And
you're going on to normal tires.
Normal road tire. Yeah, which is fine, but the problem is
it's fine. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. It's just the problem is with the Aurus, it's got so much torque. It's like even on the Achilles, it felt like normal road tires. It didn't feel like I had that much grip. And I mean, I had a lot of grip on the Supra. The Supra was gripped up a lot, and I mean, we basically did the same thing to the Aurus so far. And the tires can't hold the torque. It's like it just wheel spins past it. So, and I'm not even on normal tires. I'm on the Achilles. So it's just, it's like a little bit like it's a bittersweet. But I think if we develop it more, we'll get it to where we want it to be. It's just at this present time, I don't see us realistically having a lot of competitions this year. So for me, I want to use the rest of this year for development purposes on that car, and then see what happens next year. And my other plan initially.
Is it still going to be a SupaDrift this year? I mean, last time I spoke to Mike, everything they were looking at moving it up, but I mean, at the moment, everything's still so much in the air. We have no idea.
I know they got that Missouri vibes and stuff like that, but I don't really know. I mean, they were going to do a Triple Crown event. I wasn't so keen on a Triple Crown event. To me, you must have a championship. That sort of determines who a champion is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not doubting the stuff they're doing. I think that they're still trying to keep it up and floating, and everything is a great success. And I actually take my hat off to them. I can see the work that they do behind the scenes. I got to know them a bit better last year as well. So I don't doubt what they're doing is, everything they're trying to do is better for the sport. And
those boys work hard, eh? Yeah. A lot of guys don't see it. Mike and Jim, they really put hours in behind. I mean, keeping the teams going, cars going, everything. I mean, exactly. I really take my hat off to them.
They helped me a hell of a lot last year as well. A lot of things, like if they even drove down from Joburg to Desi with the vehicle, because we also planned routes and trips. You had to think about what's the next way to go forward, and they helped a lot by bringing the vehicle down to events and stuff. So I got a different sense of appreciation for them, and I got to know them a bit better. And I don't doubt their decision on anything. Like I think the way they're looking at things, they're trying to make it more fun for people. I think that is the right way to do it. You know, you got to get people interested in the sport. You got to make it fun. But I'm just a competitive person. I wanna have competition. You know, I wanna see who the proper guys are. Who is the competitive guys? Like to me, I wanna, like, if I win first place, I must know that I worked hard to get that first place. You know, that's what it is to me. So, I can't, unfortunately, with the sponsors I have, I can't just go drift for fun. You know, it costs money and somebody's got to pay that. So maybe for other people it's a different story, but for me at least it's very difficult. So yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, look, I can't wait to actually see you out there. Next time I'm in Cape Town, we need to meet up because I need to actually see this Oris that you've done. But like I said, it boggles my mind. I have to see what went where and how you fit in. I mean, you were talking, we were saying about the V8 fitting into the car. That's my first thought process, because I mean it's a Coyote, so I've dealt with the Coyotes a lot. And the thing that goes to my mind is, well, where does steering go? Where does suspension go? Where are you sitting? Are you moving it? How far back did you have to go to make space for everything? Where does radiators and stuff go? It's like that's a car building mindset. On that,
even on the radiator side, we've developed that. I mean, even still, I mean, we had the radiators in the back. I had a fully fabricated radiator with proper tanks and air ducting and blowers and all the stuff like hooked up, and we really battled with the radiator in the back. Something with that motor, I don't know if it's the motor, we tried with different like water pumps as well. We took the original water pump out, we put electric pump on. That didn't really solve the issue. I dash 18, dash 20 braided lines from front to back. All custom made stuff, and it didn't really work. We ended up going the traditional way and putting the radiator in the front. We made it just work, and it seems a million times better. So it's like things like that, like
it's a Ford, dude. It's a Ford. Once an old school. Just put it where it's supposed to be. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like things like that we're still developing, and like I mean, all the steering rack is all custom. We're using a Toyota Hilux steering rack of all things, all custom ends, custom knuckles. We're using Honda discs with Toyota Oris calipers. We got Woolwood caliper on the back for the handbrake. I've got a proper nameless performance hydraulic handbrake. We're obviously using the normal Mustang 6-speed gearbox, which is fantastic because I think it's a perfect ratio. But it's all custom steering column. So your column was like the biggest headache, because where do you put this thing? It's like you look at where, like, if you sit in the car, you're like, okay, cool, I know where it must go, but you look where this angle needs to travel. How's this going to work? We have to like think of like every single part we got to, all of these little things. It's like it becomes a development. Like, what do you do next? It's like eventually we got so used to it, you know. So, but yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean,
but I think you're achieving with what you want to do. You've built something iconic. You've built something that now stands out, you know.
I'm not just another 13 in the crowd, yeah.
Exactly. And you know, that, like you said, that's the way forward. I think what you guys have achieved is great, absolutely great. Look, I think I wish we could open up the sport more in South Africa, so you guys can get more sponsors, a lot of more big names behind you, and that type of stuff. You know, I think that's I know from the drifting side, with working with Jason and all these guys, that's the hardest part. Is just getting the backing constantly of what you guys want to do. You know,
it's difficult to and stuff, you know. They want to show what you bring to the table, and I've been very fortunate with Mike. So I mean, they've physically seen the hard work I put in and what I give back to them as well. But they go off, you know, views. They want to see their car on track, and they can't be there, but there must be a live stream of some sort or something like that. And I think it goes a long way with a lot of sponsors, and that's how you also build a name up for yourself. But actually, what I wanted to say was, in Mozambique, is quite ironic. There they've got soccer and drifting. That's it. We've got soccer, rugby, cricket, you know, motorsports are like parts of the list. So no one really bothers about it. There, it's like, I think I won the round there, and I was like a national hero. It was crazy.
Nice.
I think Neil is like his friends, like almost best friends with the president or something, because he's doing all these rallies and stuff, and the president closes the road off and says, "Can I put up a show here for my party," you know, and it's like one of those things. It's crazy. Like it's a different mindset.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Yeah, you know, guys. I just think people look at motorsport and they think like, oh, it's just you sort of playing around. It's not a sport. You know, I think people, I don't know. I think South Africans' mindset need to change. And one of the things I wanted to do in the next year or two, I really want to make like, I want to say a mini documentary. I don't want to make it a long thing, but just explaining to South Africans what is drifting to South Africans. Like, you know, I think a lot of people understand what drifting is, but they don't actually understand what drifting is. Like when I moved from main circuit to drifting, a lot of the main circuit people I would see often, and they were like, but what is drifting? They can see me going sideways, but what is drifting? You know, they don't understand the concept and the judging criteria, and you're going for clipping points, and how do you know who won? You know, it's like things like that I would love to explain to them, but it's not something you can tell them in like 5 minutes. You got to like, you got to sort of explain the whole scenario before you get to that. So yeah,
dude,
that's something.
But at your level, or in South Africa, in the what's it, the grassroots level that we're doing in South Africa, it would be great. I think it would be just interesting to follow someone like you for a year, you know, to see how it starts. Every event, build up, what goes in. Yeah, talk to me. I like that idea. That's seriously something that I'd like to get behind. It's a good story. To me, it's a good story.
Yeah, it's not something I want to make like dragged out, because you know South Africans they can only watch things for like between 5 to 10 minutes. I think that's about it. But it's just basically giving a rundown. That's really what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, I still get questions. You know, it's crazy, and people don't. I think people understand it, but they still don't understand it. You know, I don't think people see the amount of time and effort that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, besides like us building oars, but just the basic stuff like get into an event. And like we drive, for example, Desi, from Cape Town to Desi, that's really far. And we used to go the back way. We didn't even go on the main roads. And my dad and I driving through the night, and then you must still do an event the next day and then drive back home. You know, and in 2018, we still borrowed vans. You know, we were like borrowing a van from a sponsor, and you needed it back on Monday morning. You know, so we were like rushing to get back after the event, and we would tired. You know, I'd work the Monday, so it's like it's things
you
like
were driving. Were you driving through the Eastern Cape in the dark? Dude, that is I did that last year when I was shooting Rod Shop. I did that. I drove from Cape Town to Durban to go shoot on that side. And I don't know how I get myself into these stupid situations. I'm driving alone. And normally when I do, especially like road trips and stuff, my wife's on the phone at home with the kids. So I'll drive and I'll go, listen, I'm 200 k's from here. I think I'm just gonna sleep in this town, you know, Airbnb, book it, pop in. Yes, I hit the Eastern Cape, past PE's London. I'm on almost to Durban, and the sun car starts going down. And every time I get around a corner, there's a fucking cow or kids in the middle of nowhere in the road. You're doing 120 and then corner cow. I think I almost hit like 5 cows. And then I followed I remember I got off the highway and I had like 200 k's of fuel left. I'm on my way to this place with the Airbnb. And it was like 6 o'clock at night, and I'm so glad I'm off the highway. Dude, I hit rural area. By 9 o'clock, I was like bundu bashing with this thing, like you can't believe. I actually ended up, I shit you not, I ended up phoning because I got stuck. No idea where I was. Okay, Google wasn't helping, Maps wasn't helping. Can't find this B&B because I'm in the middle of a rural area, like a serious rural area. I'm like dodging cows and stuff. And I phoned the police, and I had to send this woman a WhatsApp so she could find out where I was, so she could get me, because I ran out of fuel, everything.
Oh, my word. That's the worst, yeah.
Never again. I learned coming back roads. I leave early. I sleep in big cities. Never drive. Yeah.
I mean, we've had so many of these stories as well, like on the roads. I mean, we would drive also to Desi, and there's one part of this road. I mean, the first time we ever drove there, okay, besides, like you say, the cows, we had goats we had to dodge. But
Yeah.
it's like early hours of the morning, and you're driving, it's like on a main road, and you're doing 100, towing a vehicle. I mean, you've got obviously a heavy weight on you, and there's a speed bump in front of you, a speed bump.
Yeah.
I mean,
Out
there's
of
no
nowhere.
warning.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a speed bump, that you must slam on brakes, And we even had, like, even on our way to, I mean, we drove to Mozambique for the final. We drove from Cape Town to Mozambique. That was the worst drive ever. I mean, that's far from us. That's 22 hours, but it actually took us 24 hours driving. And literally about 150 k's before the border, we lost a whole hub and wheel on the trailer. It literally overtook us. Like, I mean, and it's, you're in the middle of nowhere, and then we had to now go through Mozambique border with all their whole hectic scenarios again, and through all that. That was a whole nother story on its own. Like on 3 wheels the whole way for the next like 200 k's. It was crazy, like you can't make this stuff up. I mean, but like, although I look back at it now and it's like
best road trips ever.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was literally the most fun I've ever had with my dad as well, on these road trips. But would I do it again? Probably not. I mean, you learn from your mistakes in certain ways, but to get that time back, I mean, I would do it every single time as long as it's with, the right people. I think it's the people that make the trip. It's not so much the distance or the traveling really. So, but yeah, we've had a lot of crazy stories.
I drove to Speed Week. I had the Jack Daniels Dodge Ram, the Cummins motor in it, and I had my friend Cole Ebel's race car on the back of the trailer.
Yeah.
And Cole's still angry with me about this one. So we're driving to the first Speed Week, and they're busy working on the road. And I mean, but the Dodge Ram, I mean, this thing is like 1,000 Newton meters of torque, and you can tow a house and not feel it behind you. And Carl was in a Vito behind me, and we're driving. And so next thing, my phone rings. I pick up the phone. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, pull off. I'm like, why? He says, you blew all the tires on the trailer like 3 k's back. I'm like, I did? He says, I didn't notice. Dragging everything off. I actually, if you go watch the I think we did a documentary on it. You'll actually see us standing on the side of the road, and where I literally blew all the tires on the side of it. I think we went through like 4 sets of tires on the thing on the way back. On the way, and then when we drove back, it was fun. When we left Speed Week, we were on our way back. The bearings went, and we went Namibia. We had to get to Uppington, which was like 200. Well, we were on the border from Namibia for Speed Week, and we had to get to Uppington, and it's like 200 something k's. So the only thing we could do was just run on one axle with a race car. Yeah. But I mean, I had to drive at like 80. Yeah. So, God, and I actually, guys didn't believe me. I think I got the Dodge Ram I think I hit 7 liters per 100 kilometers.
Jeez.
No, the fuel consumption was stupidly good. Yeah. It wasn't that the other way around. Yeah, it was crazy how low fuel consumption. Because I was riding in third. The car kept wanting to get cut out. And it was best road trip ever. I love stories like that.
Yeah, but
that's racing.
Yeah, but that's the things you remember. Yeah, it's like, it's weird because you never really think about it like now. But I mean, like, for example, we're chatting about it. It's like it just brings back more memories. Like you remember the whole weekend because of that. It's like things like that. Just like, yeah, it's a cool thing to tell someone.
You don't even remember who won or anything else that happened. You remember the trip, yeah?
Yeah, you always remember something weird. Like Mozambique, like, even though I remember winning the championship, I can't remember all my battles, but all I remember was the borders. It was the most chaotic thing we've ever been through. It was absolutely crazy. So, yeah.
Dude. No. Listen, so there might be a chance that we're still going to see, hopefully we're going to see you guys out with that Aurus this year. Tearing up the track.
We'll probably be doing. I really want to do some testing before the end of the year. So, whether we do something in Cape Town or even if we have to go worst case to Kimberley, I just need somewhere where I can test, and if something breaks, it breaks. then we know what to fix going forward. I need to get more seat time in the car.
Yeah.
The car feels, at this very present time, it feels fantastic, like on a fast corner. So like the Supra is all opposite way around. The Supra is like really good in tight stuff, and on a fast corner you got to be like on it. You got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But with the Urus, it's like it's so easy in the fast stuff. I can literally like use my one finger to drive it. It's like that easy. So
Wow.
it's like things like that. I need to just feel what happens if I do this, or what happens if I do that. I'm not I know what the car is going to do, but I'm still like unsure because I haven't had that much seat time in it. So, but we'll get there. I mean, if I can put the same amount of seat time as I did in the Urus, in the Supra that I can put in the Urus, and I think it'd be pretty good. So we'll see what happens there.
Dude, listen, all the best. Yeah, man, like I said, I've been watching what you've been doing. I think it's great. So all the best, and let's hold thumbs. 2021 is much better for all of us and for racing.
Yeah.
And let's hope everyone's sitting at home are bored out of their minds, and 2021 comes and everyone's like, let's just go watch racing everywhere. It doesn't matter what's racing. Let's go watch it. Support it. You know? Because
I hope that's the case.
If it's not getting support, then it's not going to be around. Unfortunately, it's like everything. I mean, racing's there for the races, but if the crowds aren't there, then the sponsors. I've had this fight with motor shows even. It's if the crowds aren't there, the sponsors aren't there.
Exactly.
You could be the best driver in the world, but if no one's there to watch you, no one's going to back you.
I think that's the biggest thing I have with, especially in Akilani getting up and running. There's no spectators; they're very limited, but there's no live stream even. So who are the sponsors actually paying? What are they paying for? There's no coverage. For me, it's always the spectator you're actually paying like for the spectator to see like that vehicle. Like, oh, that's a cool. I've never heard about Mike Space before. Let's check what they do. That's the people you need to tackle. But with them not even having that, it just sort of thinks, like I sort of think to myself, what's the point? What is the meaning of that then? So, but like you say, I mean, it's still early days. We moved down to level 2, technically speaking, but
I know I've got a vape today, and there's wine upstairs. I'm like picking shit. Tomorrow I'm like beer legally. Good beer.
Gee. But I don't know. Let's hope. But I mean, hopefully we can get drifting soon. Let's see how these two test days come, basically with the stuff SupaDrift has planned. But I think we'll definitely be out driving somewhere, between now and the end of the year. So I think have a look out for that. I think it'll be quite interesting. And then if you're ever in Cape Town again, let me know, and we can always meet up or whatever, and I can show you the car and. Yeah,
dude, you better take me for a drive in that thing. You're gonna have to. Mate, make me scream like a little girl, dude. That's I want to see that. No one's got that right yet, so maybe it's your turn. Dude, thank you so much for being on the show, dude.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
All the best. Look after yourself and be safe. All right.
Yeah, thanks to you, man. Cool.
Okay, man. Speak to you later.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers,
man.
Bye.